Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is Deborah Peters from The Deborah Peters Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm absolutely delighted to have you here. I truly love podcasting. I think it's one of the most fun things that I do. And today's show is going to be outstanding. I can promise you that. But before we get into it, want to just say that your likes, shares, comments definitely are what build this show. It's what talks to the algorithm and gets more viewers and more subscribers. So definitely share away, like, and when you're commenting, we can use those comments to build content for future shows. So the Deborah Peters Show is all about consciousness, and today's show is about relationships. So that is a big part of consciousness, and it's one of the pillars that I have for this show. I think that, it probably doesn't get more in your face than when you're in a relationship, because wherever you go, there you are. But I also cover other pillars as well, and that's health, wealth, business, and self-expression. They all tie together. I believe so much that how we see ourselves is really the lens through which we see the world. And personally, I've been going through a transformation this last few weeks, and so many things are shifting. It's like, it seems to me that as soon as we got into that full moon on the 7th of March, then everything kind of started to unfold. But I really appreciate you guys, and thank you for supporting my channel. Today, my guest is really an amazing guy, and his name's Glenn Sandifer. He's author of The Middle Ground. So we're going to have a conversation today about relationships. And he's broadcasting live from the Chicago Midway Airport yoga studio. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Deborah. Thank you to your audience for the time.
Whatever it takes. We were just talking before we went live about how when I first launched the show over a year ago, I was out in Montana, and I went there to go snowmobiling, and I was staying at this cabin, and I was getting all teed up in the morning, making sure all my technology worked, and just as I was about to test everything, the Wi-Fi in the entire town went out, and I had to drive like 70 miles in a snowstorm to Idaho to find a library that I could broadcast from. But whatever you got to do, the show must go on, right?
The show must go on, regardless of schedule changes and airlines. Happy to be here.
I'm amazed you made it, actually. So kudos to you.
I know you thought you told everyone I canceled on you. So
yeah, so totally busted. I'm talking smack about you.
Bad. She was talking smack, guys. She was going in. She called someone, some random guy on the street. He didn't have a camera. Can you come join my show? I was like, I'm right here. I'm sitting here. Hey, Deborah, I can hear you. I can see you.
I can hear you talking smack about me. Oh my God, that's hilarious. So what's the deal? Should we get married or not? Like, what's the deal?
Of course you should get married.
Yeah, good answer.
No, I mean, it's just the reality is, kind of for the middle ground, we talk more in the context of relationship. We believe that the best relationship outcome is between one man, one woman, with the goal and intent of a long-term committed relationship with marriage and children. That's just what we believe and we profess. And so with that, yes, we do believe in marriage. We just also believe that some of us are too selfish to be married.
Well, I can hear you on that. No, I totally can hear you on that. What's interesting is I've been, a serial monogamist in my life. I'm being very careful right now. And during my serial monogamy period of time, I was always, on the fence about getting married. Like, should I not, And like I professed to you before we launched today, I've been close twice, been engaged twice, and really, truly 100% grateful that I didn't bite the bullet, because, they would have been massive fails. So, if the energy is not aligned, the energy is not aligned. We just weren't on the same page. Like, it was really a values conflict for in both situations.
Mhm.
So I was wise enough to figure that out before I spent any money on a wedding. But I don't think that's the case for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, they take that step and then don't really know how to handle it after the fact.
Yes, I do believe that's the case. And what we say at the middle ground, there are four things that you need to do before you can even commit yourself to a relationship. You first have to know who you are. By knowing who you are, that lets you know what you want. Once you know what you want, you then go into the process of understanding what you qualify for. And then with
That's
what
it.
you qualify for, what do they want from you? So
Yeah.
with that entire process of four steps, that can take anywhere between 4 months to 4 years, 4 decades, depending on who you are. But it
Sure.
sounds like through your own personal process, you've gone through that. You've clarified who you are. You clarified to know what I want. And then you said, I want this person. And then maybe this person is not the best for me. We don't have the energy alignment, as you put it.
Mhm.
So let's not move in the next direction in the next step of marriage. That is a much better process than marrying, failing,
Yeah.
or being fearful to where you don't even try. And what we have found in the space of relationships now, we people are saying, both men and women, unless it's all of these things on my list, you can do an animation. I'm not even going to try.
I
And
used to
that
be
list,
like that.
yeah, everyone has a list. Everyone has personal preferences, but it's when those personal preferences trump the person, you start to lose that aspect of
Mhm.
reality and what's available to you. So that's why I've adopted and communicated this theory, and it has helped a number of individuals, and
Oh,
hopefully
I'm
to my
sure.
audience.
Yeah, because I used to be like that. It's fascinating to me just how, and you know this because of the work you do, helping executives with their relationships, but just even the personal development world back in the day when I first started, it was very, I would say like rigid. It was very rigid in that
Mhm.
you were to, with great specificity, map everything out, almost hyper map things. And
Mhm.
then it, there was, there could never be any deviation from that. And if you didn't get
Mhm.
all of that, then you weren't supposed to go for anything. It was like the all or none.
Yeah.
And it fit very well with my personality because I'm an all or none kind of person. I'm like full on or I just don't. And because I'm not a mediocre person. Like I don't like mediocrity in any shape or
Mhm.
form. So I'm either going to go for it, guns blazing, 100%, or I'm not. And so that whole rigidity kind of personal development training from back in the day was a good fit. However, as I would think like spiritually matured and come
Mhm.
to realize that there's a lot of gray areas in life, and things just really aren't black and white. And if you keep them black and white, then you kind of squeeze out sometimes all the juice and all the fun and the spontaneity and the
Mhm.
flexibility. Um, but I would say that probably fits even in terms of my relationship values too. It's like, okay, I've got this list, and if you don't fit this list, then we forget about it.
Yeah.
Just forget
Yeah.
about it.
No, forget about it. I'm done.
Yeah. But it's like, so what are you saying about that?
I'm saying that, well, again, going through the process analysis, I'm saying that that is accurate, but you have to really clarify what it is that you want. So, who I am
Really
and what do I want? If
do.
you want a relationship outcome where marriage is the end goal, and then you want to be able to set yourself up for a great marriage, we say in the dating aspect, you have to do some pre work. And a lot of us that have been in business and a lot of us that own businesses, you know exactly what pre-work can be
Yeah.
before any major meeting and major decision.
Yeah.
And this is a major decision from a relationship standpoint. And kind of what
Well,
I
it's the
talk about
biggest
in,
it's the
yeah,
biggest decision I think anyone ever makes, because the person
yeah.
you're married to can literally make you or break you,
Yeah.
right?
And we a lot of people that are broken years later come to realize that I picked wrong. Not that the person was wrong. I picked wrong. There was something in me that made me pick this. So a lot of people ask, why did you do the middle ground? Well, first, I didn't want to do the middle ground. I had a completely different book. And as I navigated a couple of things in my life personally, that created the shift. So I went through a really tough divorce in the late 2000s, early 2010s. And from that, I decided to do 2 years of therapy. And in that therapy, I had to figure out a couple of things. The first was what happened? And not what
Sure.
happened from that standpoint of the other person. What did I do? And then begin to own that, and then begin to set, strategies in place so that I don't do that again. And second, I had to know, all right, why did I pick this person? And what I came to realize, and this is no knock at that person, I picked what I wanted at 16. And what I want at 16 is not what you typically want at 65. And to get
Exactly.
to 16 to 65, there's a whole process that goes in between. And then following that, I realized the deficiencies that I had in order to be in the role of husband. So I spent the 2 years, did the work, was having a good time, and then I was in a relationship. So as I was in that process of, kind of that breakdown of failure,
Mhm.
I began leading teams in different roles and different jobs. And what I found is that in each instance, as people had more professional success, they started complaining during our one-to-one time about their relationship outcome. And so I just began to journal and I began to write articles. This was the early days of Facebook,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you'd be
yeah.
able to do the first Facebook pages, and it never got any traction. But what it did was kind of create the framework of that initial book.
Sure.
So fast forward, I meet my wife in 2014. We date for a number of years. And as I'm going through that courting process with her, I change. And I change because I realized some of the things that it took to get what I had before and the things that it would take to get this and make this work, I had to change who I was. And so I changed my approach. And that approach informed the middle ground. And what I say to people is, as you're having those relationship troubles or challenges, even though you're having the professional success, you have to first ask yourself the questions that we talked about in the beginning. In part one of the book, The Middle Ground, How to Get Great Dating Outcomes in a Modern World, we talk about how we got here. So it goes into all of the history within North America specifically about what changed from a policy standpoint to lead the breakdown in the relationship, specifically the breakdown in the family. We won't bore everybody. Yeah, policies.
Policy as ah,
Mhm.
like
There were a lot of policies that were instituted in the 1960s that changed the dynamic of families, and it had a negative impact. It had an unintended consequence that the government didn't want. And that's been documented through a
yeah,
number
I
of
can see that.
reports.
That's
So,
really
so,
glaringly obvious.
so then when you have a 40-year period after the establishment of those, what do you see? You see a change in the dynamic of the relationship. A lot of people love chapter 2 and chapter 3 of part 1. We talk about boys to high value men and girls to high value women.
Yeah.
Women changed. I talk about how the traditional man and woman that my grandmother, grandfather were, that no longer exist. So, and that was in part due to the change in the policy and the change in the culture. And with that change in the culture, we had more women who now had the option, because of the advent of the computer, to no longer have to deal with the man at that level for provision. So some decided after attending college to go into the workforce. And as they went into the workforce in the 80s and the 90s with the boom of the economy, they had more opportunity than ever presented before. So that was the second generation of women who worked outside the home. Now we're in third, fourth, and fifth generations. So if you
Sure.
have 3 or more generations that have a specific experience, that experience is going to lead to different decisions. So then as I wrote part 1 and I went through chapter 2 of part 1, I said, who are the men? And the men have changed.
I know, and I'm not happy about that.
Why? Why are you not happy that the men have changed? They changed because the market changed.
Of course, that's always the way, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's
What
a
would you
good
want in your
thing.
man? What would you want your man to be right now?
A man's man, very
Okay.
masculine,
Mm.
strong, you know, obviously conscious and has a spiritual understanding of himself and humanity and people, the dynamics of people. But oh man, so I'll give you an example. So I had this guest on, and it was a family. It was a father-daughter, and to everything you've just said, there was a lot of this sort of like the daughter kind of wanting the father to be different, like not protective, not instinctually caring for his daughter, and I kind of turned it into a coaching session on the podcast, and I'm like, listen, don't be doing that with your father. Like that's your dad's natural instinct. He'll always be your father, whether you guys are business partners or not. You're always going to be his little girl. My daughter will always be my little girl. And at some point we have to stop apologizing for that and just be that. And I think that's what's happened with men is we've thrown so much of this, toxic masculinity narrative at them that they don't even know if they can say anything these days. It's like
they're very clear. You can't say anything.
Yeah. And so I want the men back.
Okay, so you want the men back. So you would like a masculine man. What we talk about at the middle ground is you're typically looking at someone who would be one of three men. So let's take out everyone's favorite, the F boy or the city boy. So you don't want a city boy or an F boy.
No city boys, no.
But see, look at your face. They have good chemistry. You have good chemistry with them. We'll just leave it at that.
No, I meant that in a way of like, no, I'm done with the city boys.
Like, I know, but that's the audience's favorite. They love the city boy. So masculine men will be traditional. So a traditional man wants a traditional outcome. I talked about my grandparents. He is going to provide, he's going to protect, he's going to profess, and he's going to priest in his home. He's going to make sure that everything within the needs of the house, emotionally and physically, are taken care of. He wants his woman to be traditional. His traditional woman will be the nurturer and the helper. I talk about the leader and the helper in the book.
Right.
This is where you see that. The leader and the helper starts with men and women, specifically traditional men and women. So if you want a masculine man, are you traditional?
See, therein lies the hiccup.
Why is it a hiccup?
Because I'm a alpha female. I'm a leader.
Okay. So alpha females are leaders. Go to 3 different groups.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. So the first group is the group that all the guys and the males love are the city girls. Oh, they love them. But you're not a city girl. You're too professional for that. Then we have females, but you have a lot of emotional maturity. So you wouldn't be a female. So you would be a modern woman. Because a high value woman, the difference is a high value woman is 100% focused on the purpose of her and her man's legacy.
Yeah.
So as a modern woman, most modern women look for things, and we hear key terms. Chemistry, it depends, 50-50, partner. This is where the word partner gets uttered a lot. So as a modern woman, your best pairing is going to be a modern man who shares that value. He will have some of the traits of a traditional man, but will still work in that partner mindset.
Okay.
Do you want a partner mindset in your relationship? It's not a business.
Yeah. So I guess I'd have to understand what the term partner means, because that term's killed. It's really overused these days. So what does that mean?
Webster says that a partner is someone who is a member of a joint venture, one or more parties. So the joint venture of a partnership in a relationship, that fits. But a partner, in most instances, indicates equal voice and equal rights.
I see. I got you. Yeah, I would be a partner kind of person.
Yeah. So there are plenty of modern men who are out there, who are doing great, who are masculine, who are ready to go.
Yeah. I like how you broke that down. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But I like to say that in the instance, I always recommend the pairing of like for like. And I talk a lot about this in part 2 as we go through who are you and knowing who you are, and knowing, what you want. Wanting a high value man and woman are less than 10% of the market. So anyone who says, I'm a high value woman, I want a high value man, there are things that you have to line up with in order to qualify for it.
Yes.
So as if I am someone who lacks emotional maturity or discipline, I don't have any consistency with my professionalism, no consistency with long-term relationships, and submitting myself to someone else's program, then you don't want to be in a high value status. And that's what I believe. I'm saying to most women specifically, and those that are in the audience, don't aspire to be high value, because you're going to 100% be on a high value men's plan. Modern is where we will find most of the people in the space. And there are plenty of opportunities, because there are a lot of modern men who are now speaking up and saying, you know what? No, I'm fine. You work, I work. You have a career, I have a career. I'll split the bills. When we get married and we have kids, I'll do half of the childcare, you do the other half. And that's how they work. And that's because of what we talked about earlier on this session.
Right.
The society has changed. The men have changed. How many of your clients are men who know how to cook and clean, and they're in relationships with women who don't?
Well, first of all, I should say that 99% of my clients are men that are in executive leadership positions, typically CEOs of small to mid-sized companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say probably 2/3 of them have wives that have careers. Mm-hmm. Maybe a quarter or a third of them will cook. But then there's this gap. There's always this gap, you know.
Yeah.
And I've done some relationship coaching, couples coaching with quite a few of them over the years. And I had this one client whose wife made bank. I think she probably made something like $3.5 million a year, and he was making 1.5. And he always referenced it as, FU money. And so they had to find basically another reason they were together. And I think this is the cross in the road, or the T intersection of like, okay, so if I don't need you to support me financially, and that's what you're used to your role being, but we love each other, we want to be together, then we have to find those points of connection, rather than it being about me being supported financially. Because what if I like to make money? What if deal making is fun for me?
Yeah, for the modern woman and the modern man, that's not it. For the modern woman, you're going to need emotional support. So
100%.
Understanding emotions, and then you're going to need companionship. If those two things are met, any guy who's listening, he wants to know, how do I get this modern woman? Emotional support and companionship.
Yeah, just like totally champion me. And when I've got crazy ideas and I'm going for broke and making things happen, like be my champion, and then be my buddy. Like, let's go on adventures together.
See, I solved the problem for you.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
It's not easy. Well, no, it's, I agree.
Oh, you muted yourself.
So once money's off the table, so once provision's off the table, you have to look at a different form of provision. That's why I say, even for traditional households, for a traditional man, he understands that it's not just going to be financial, it also has to be emotional. Because let's take it, you're a mother and you have a daughter. What is the biggest emotional toll that you have? It's the transition from wife only to wife and mother. So that wife and mother transition requires a lot of emotional support and understanding. I did not say, gentlemen, logic. It may not be logical. You just need to have the emotional capacity and grow it in order to meet the need of that woman. And that's in a traditional household. It's also in a high value household. So for your clients, they may fall in that category, specifically off their earnings and their profession. It's never a situation where you find men who are just checked out. That's where you see your city boys, your guys, and your males. They're checked out. And the childcare piece, ladies. So you want to look for modern, traditional, and high value men when it's coming to doing that, because that's a part of the legacy of men is their children. So they want to be 100% involved with their kids. So that's how you kind of do it. When I go into part 2 of the book, I added a table to the book because everyone wants to be the table. I am the table. So I added a table with all of the categories. So there are six
Okay.
major categories, and there's one subset for men and women, traditional and modern. All I ask people to do is circle what they think they are. You've read part one, you've read the first part of part two. What do you think you are? And then it goes into why do I believe this? And what we find is that if you take away the vanity and the ego of it, most people will believe what they are because of their history. So if your history
Sure.
dictates, I was raised by a traditional man and a traditional woman, or I was raised in a single parent household, that is going to inform how you see the world and how you operate in the world.
100%. It's the
And once you,
lens.
so that as through that lens, great work, you will then see the world in a completely different way than someone who could be, as a modern woman, and above your partner. So you just want to make sure that you're 100% aligned with yourself and then your significant other as you start
That's the
making those
key.
decisions. I say therapy. I went through 2 years of
100%.
therapy. I believe in therapy for individuals, especially if you have some of those traumas. We talk about how the environment shapes who you are outside of your education and the culture and social media. But if there was something that happened between the ages of 0 to 18,
Yeah.
18 to 30, that is never addressed and you don't understand why that happened and how that impacted you and how you see the world, it limits you as you go down the world. Now, I didn't say the trauma limits you, not handling the trauma
Not
and
handling it.
working on what that thing is will continue to keep you in the outcomes you want, specifically in your relationship.
It's interesting you say that because I was going to say personal development work is the key to everything.
Mhm.
For me, it was like I grew up in this contradiction. So I had, I grew up in a traditional environment, but my dad died when I was 7, and my mom decided to keep the farm and run it as a business herself. And my grandfather basically taught her how to farm.
Mhm.
So, I have this model of this woman at a time when women just didn't do men's work. It just, society
Mhm.
wasn't ready for that.
Mm.
And but she was doing it, and she was super successful at it at a massive cost to her freedom of her life, her femininity, her
Mhm.
joy, her falling in love again. Like all of that was just taken off the table because it was focused on running this farm. So I'm seeing this as being that's my model, right? But the contradiction to that was we were still thinking like and talking like and seeing neighbors and families members living traditional lives where the woman was the helper and the man was the key person.
Mhm.
So
Leader. I say leader in the book, leader and helper.
yeah, so I was living in a dichotomy
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I've had to really work through that. And I noticed it within myself that I had these conflicting notions and conflicting value systems, which I worked on early on. I still work on them. It's not, these things just don't like dissolve from you because they're, to your point, like 0 to 7 imprint
Hmm.
years, 7 to 14 modeling years, like these are deeply rooted belief systems, paradigms, like they're in there, and you got to work through them and get clear on who you are before you can be clear on who you want to be with.
Yeah. So like we just did a 10-minute exercise and we know that we already answered and now we understand the backstory. A
Yeah.
traditional guy wanting you to be home is not going to work. That's just not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you and it's not going to work for him. So since it won't work for either of you, let's not invest the time.
No.
And in our society, that's what we do. I didn't come up in this new dating wave. I was blessed enough to meet my wife through two friends, and we went on a blind date. But just swiping
Oh God,
creates
I can't.
this this lack of urgency, and it provides this perception of true choice and options that don't really exist. Back in the day,
Good point.
Back in the day, my parents, I love them. They're probably watching this. Hi, mom.
Hi,
They
Mom.
met. They met in the neighborhood. If we said, "Hey, we're going to meet someone in the neighborhood and get married," from 2010 on, we kind of be like, "Don't you want to get out the house?" They met in the neighborhood. So in their time period when they were coming up, you married and dated. You dated to marry, and you dated to
Yes.
marry the person who was in close proximity.
It
And
wasn't a sport.
wasn't a sport.
It,
So
it was an
they dated.
intentional act.
High school sweethearts, went to college, graduated college, moved to a town, had a child, had a family. Great life. It then moved from community to local community to city or region. So then you went from high school to high school dating. So still kind of close neighborhoods. Cities are pretty much alike anywhere that you go. Then as it left from city to region, it went to larger region state. And so that was because we had a large influx in college. So now people left high school, left their high school sweetheart, and went down to the local state school, and they partied or they met someone or they had something. Then it went from that to national, and then national to international. It also coincides with the growth of media. We went from records and 8 tracks to tapes to CDs to digital downloads. We went from videos being something that was an extreme luxury, that you would see a Michael Jackson video on a Sunday night with your family with the popcorn in front, to where videos were everywhere and culture was being displayed. So everyone's appetite grew through their visuals. So you no
Always.
longer had to just get someone from your local town, from your neighborhood, from your
Yeah.
local town, from your state, from your local high school, from your local college, from just where you live. You can get them everywhere. And now everyone has to believe that someone is just a DM or a swipe away. So that stops us from doing the work.
Yeah.
So
There's
since
no
we don't,
investment.
yeah, there's no investment in another person, let alone you being the best version of yourself to enter into that relationship. So I think that it's very key when someone talks to me about, the middle ground and why the middle ground is, it's because I want to prevent all of that drama on the back end by letting you do the work on the front end. And then for some people who are in bad things, make sure you make the right choice and then prepare yourself for the next thing.
Well, what's interesting is there's a kind of a presumed or perceived level of exoticism. Is that a word? Yeah, for dating outside of your local realm, and it ain't all that. I've traveled the world. I've done business in 19 countries. I've dated from 19 countries, and there's nothing glamorous about it. Like, at the end of the day, it's a space filler to think that someone from somewhere else is going to be better than someone standing right in front of you, because it has nothing to do with geography. Wherever you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is going to mirror who you are being with yourself, no matter what nationality they are or what, exotic look they have about themselves. So, I think that, I hope that through your book and your work, which I think is brilliant, by the way, you're welcome, that this whole idea of relationship dynamics and, just true love. I believe in true love.
Look at you, a romantic.
Yeah, I totally
hopeless romantic here, guys.
I am. I'm a total. I believe true love is everything, and I've been waiting all my life for true love. Like, there's love, but then there's true love, and you know it. You know it when it's true love. It's undeniable.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. So I hope it's coming full circle, and we're coming back to some, I don't know, old school values on this. I do.
I think
He froze up. Oh no. We have to have you back. I hope that signal clears up, because I want to hear what else he has to say before we close off the show. I'll give him a second and see what happens here. Hang in there, everybody. Don't hang up. I want to be able to finish this off with Glenn because this has been an incredible conversation today. And while we're waiting for him to get a signal back, definitely themiddlegroundbook.com. So you want to find Glenn online, themiddlegroundbook.com. His work is really, really good. And he's got a lot to say about relationships. What's interesting is, hopefully he'll come back here shortly, is that he's done the work, he did the work on himself to heal whatever was going on in there so he could get back to being the man he wanted to be. And I'm just talking about you. I was just saying that you did the work on yourself that you needed to do to become the man you wanted to be. So therefore you could have the relationship you wanted to have. Because it's like that. It's be, do, have, right?
Yep, be, do, have. And then it becomes be, do, have, then be, do, be, do, be, do, have, be, do.
Be, do. Be, just keep being.
Mm-hmm. You keep being. You gotta keep you. And on this side of the middle ground, it's really a different. It's not that much of a change in the philosophy, but just the intention around it is more 100% devoted to just the cause of the relationship and the person in the relationship. So
yeah, because I didn't used to think this. I used to think that I was more powerful on my own. And I don't believe in the term alone. I've never felt alone. I'm not going to say I've never felt lonely because there's moments I've felt lonely, but they don't last long. I've always been cool on my own because I always feel like, God's totally with me and I'm moving through life on a purpose with my relationship with God. And however, I will say, that my values have changed. And that might just have come from, because I've moved around a lot. I'm a bit of a gypsy. And I've moved around to different places and experienced a lot of different cultures, which has been so enriching to be in different cultures and experience people. But, I think the message I'm trying to get across is for people to really get to know themselves enough that they can recognize when they're going through a shift in values, right? Because we do, as humans, we go through value shifts. And when we go through these shifts in values, the drivers within us change and they can literally send our objectives, our goals, our inner drive in a different direction. So I've kind of pivoted from I'm good on my own to, hey, I'd love to have someone to take by the hand and go, let's create something cool. What inspires you?
What inspires you?
Wow. Connection's bad today. I lost him again. Oh my gosh. So we'll let him come back on and say goodbye, but what do you guys think? I'd love to see some comments from people. Are you enjoying this content? Do you like the different conversations that I have with my guests? Because I really have a good time doing this show. I look forward to it every single week. We've been talking about actually maybe going to twice a week. So we'll see how that's going to go. All right. So Glenn is back.
I'm sorry to the audience. This is what happens when you're not stationed.
I brag you up when you're gone, so it's all right. You're getting lots of airtime. So in the process of what you're presenting to people in these tools, are you kind of talking about that with them? It's like, you got to really be self-aware so you can recognize your shifts.
So we say in 2023, self-awareness is sexy. You have to be
totally is sexy.
Listen, we can't go through life being lied to by our friends and our family. Those people are supposed to be our mirrors. So a lot of times when I get into a one-to-one session, a lot of people, I have to break down that, because no one has decided to be the mirror for you in your life. I have to give you some honesty and some truth. And it's really easy to kind of, figure out from a process standpoint, because there are only 6 choices of a man or a woman at the middle ground. So you're going to line up there based on a couple of questions. We got a little, people like to talk about it now. We've had it out for a couple of weeks. We have a quiz. And the quiz is for women and men. That came from the sessions, where I wanted to know, and I invite people to do that at the end of the show, but to understand, by answering the questions, you are telling us who you are. More specifically, what is it that you value? So being self-aware is required in order to do the work necessary to get to the next level and to get the desired outcome.
100%. 100%. Man, you're doing some great work, and I'm so glad you hung in here today. And don't worry about the connection. It happens. I'm just grateful that you're able to jump on. And
Thank you.
Yeah, and from the yoga room in Chicago Airport.
That's how we do.
That's what we do. So how can people find you? What's your URL?
Yeah, so it is www.themiddlegroundbook.com. There's our website where you can join the community. There's also the links to the 5 or 6 different ways you can download or purchase part 1 of the book. There's also our connections to our social media pages, which we will also link. But everything is Middle Ground Book on Instagram, and The Middle Ground Book for the other 3 of the core 4: Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Apparently, we're big on TikTok. So
I love it. That's really awesome, Glenn. Yeah. So everybody needs to get the book, The Middle Ground Book. So that's part 1. When does part 2 come out?
Well, see, that's the thing. No, part 2 is complete. Let's see, what had happened was I was about to write it and my computer. No, but part 2 is complete. What we've been waiting for, we decided to release it on the anniversary date, May 20th of this year.
Cool.
So it will be available on all of the platforms. So that will continue to be on Amazon, also available through Kindle, Audible, Apple Books, and Google Play Books, and Barnes & Noble.
Nice. Fantastic. All right, everybody. So get The Middle Ground Book, and give a follow to Glenn on Instagram. There it is. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you and your work. Have a safe trip back to Nashville. I hope our paths cross again, And thanks everybody for tuning in today. Remember to like, share, and comment. I want to hear what you think of the show, what kind of topics you'd like me to be covering under those 5 pillars of health, wealth, relationships, self-expression, and business. And also, I have a leadership and management retreat coming up. I've got a whole series this year. The next one is April 13th in Newport Beach, California. And then after that, May 11th in Savannah, Georgia. And the topic is negotiation skills, one-on-one and group dynamics, as well as communication tools. So the best communication you're going to learn is the communication you have with yourself. So thank you so much for being here today. I'll see you guys all next Tuesday. And remember, stay awake, stay aligned, and stay alert.